you like to dance? I know a school where they teach dances. I could take you there if you'd like.
You must become the assassin. You will always be weaker. You will always be smaller. You want to win? Improvise. Adapt. Cheat.
Friends, if you want to watch the action-packed and thrilling movie Ballerina 2025 in English, then you must like this video. And if you're visiting our channel Facts and Review for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss an update. Friends, in today's video we're going to talk about a highly anticipated movie, Ballerina 2025. We will discuss what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the exciting facts related to this film. In today's video, I'll be giving you complete information about which OTT platform or satellite channel you can watch this movie on. We will also dive deep into the movie's technical department, its music, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, and even its box office collection. And yes, we'll also talk about the story of the film, and I'll give you a brief review of the storyline. Not only that, we'll cover some interesting facts, explore the plot, the star cast, and talk about the performance of each actor, who played which role and how well they did. That's why I request you all to watch this video till the end. Because if you're a fan of action and thrillers, Ballerina 2025 is something you don't want to miss. So let's begin the video. Narrative structure, a linear revenge arc. Conventional foundation. The story unfolds in a largely linear fashion, beginning with traumatic backstory, childhood tragedy, escalating through training and mission phases, and culminating in a dramatic climax set piece, echoing classic revenge thriller structure. Despite a few timeline jumps, e.g., flashbacks, the central thread moves forward chronologically. iu.wikipedia.org. +15. en.wikipedia.org. +15. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +15. Vertical Traffic Light Act 1. Tragedy and Origins. Childhood trauma. As a young girl, Eve Makaro witnesses her father, Javier, a Kikimora assassin, killed by the sinister cult orchestrated by the Chancellor. Her mother dies earlier, adding to her vulnerability. This inciting tragedy propels her into the world of violence. As.com. +14. en.wikipedia.org. +14. Time.com. +14. Rescue and training. After this attack, the adult Winston, Continental Hotel owner, rescues Eve and delivers her to the Ruska Roma, an elite assassin syndicate. Under the austere guidance of the director and Nogi, she trains for 12 years, balancing ballet artistry with covert assassination skills. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +15. en.wikipedia.org. +15. fangirlish.com. +15. Clock Act 2, Rising Conflict. Kikimora graduation. Eve achieves full assassin status by eliminating a peer, a dark rite of passage that confirms her loyalty and capacity for violence. theubj.com. +2. elcinema.com. +2. thetaillebeast.com. +2. Embryonic vendetta. After a contract assignment, Eve kills one of her attackers, later revealed as a cult affiliate, and seeks clarity from the director. Despite her wish for vengeance, her superiors forbid action due to a fragile truce with the cult. en.wikipedia.org. Secret mission to Prague. Disobeying orders, Eve journeys to Prague Continental to pursue cultist Daniel Pine, only to discover Pine and his daughter Ella are hiding. Here she is confronted and overpowered by cult assassin Lena, who later abducts Ella, raising the stakes significantly. en.wikipedia.org. Fire Act 3, Escalation and Showdown. Gathering intel. Eve enlists arms dealer Frank, fighting off cult henchmen to obtain crucial information. She tracks the trail to Hallstatt, unknowingly entering a town controlled by cult loyalists. Whattowatch.com. +3. en.wikipedia.org. +3. elcinema.com. +3. Cult Stronghold Battle. Captured by the cult in Hallstatt, Eve finally confronts her adversaries. The Chancellor reveals explosive ties. Lena is Eve's lost sister, and Pine is the Chancellor's son, Ella his granddaughter. Emotional resonance peaks as Eve refuses to be undone. en.wikipedia.org. Escape and sacrifice. During the siblings' reunion, the Chancellor orders both killed. Lena dies tragically, sacrificing potential reconciliation, while Eve escapes. en.wikipedia.org. Shield Act 4, Final Confrontation and Aftermath. Battle with Wick. The director deploys John Wick to terminate Eve, hoping to preserve peace with the cult. In Hallstatt, Wick confronts her, choosing restraint rather than death. He gives her 30 minutes to assassinate the Chancellor before stand-down expires. en.wikipedia.org. +7. en.wikipedia.org. +7. Whattowatch.com. +7. Climax and resolution. Together, Eve and Wick fend off enemies. In a final confrontation, Eve kills the Chancellor and rescues Ella. Wick confirms the hit to the director, allowing Eve to be exiled from the Ruska Roma. Whattowatch.com. +13. en.wikipedia.org. +13. Time.com. +13. Exile and Vigilance. The film ends with Eve watching a ballet performance by Tatiana, a friend, as a giant bounty is placed on her head, signifying ongoing danger and emotional cost. en.wikipedia.org. Left-pointing magnifying glass, key turning points and thematic beats. Childhood attack establishes primal motivation. Completion ritual commits Eve to her assassin identity. Discovery of cult ties and Ella intensifies emotional stakes. Family revelation personalizes the conflict. Wick's intervention explores loyalty and limits. Eve's final kill, revenge, is realized, but at what cost? Performing arts' emotional and thematic impact. Loss, revenge, family. At its core, the film examines the destructive nature of revenge. Even as Eve avenges her family, her emotional wounds deepen, especially when faced with sisterly reunion and moral choices. Identity and loyalty. Eve grapples with her dual identity, artist and assassin. She defies her mentors and rewrites her path, choosing autonomy over allegiance to both Roma and cult. Tragic sisterhood. Lena's death highlights the collateral damage of vengeance, showcasing how cruel fate can twist bonds. Morgan Freeman's style mental farewell. John Wick serves as a kindred spirit who both tests and supports her. His decision to let Eve act speaks to shared respect and acknowledgement of personal ethics. Open-ended continuation. Eve's exile and the bounty setup tease her future in the Wickivice. What started with revenge may now evolve into a legacy of defiance. Structural overview. Act beats narrative style. I-trauma training linear with flashbacks. 2 missions, rule break builds suspense through defiance. 3 capture revelation, escape intense emotion and action. 4 mentor intervention, final showdown crescendo to resolution, with emotional payoff. Overall, Ballerina, 2025, follows a classic revenge thriller template, enhanced by rich world-building, emotional complexity, and brutal elegance rooted in ballet-infused combat. While linear, it integrates time-bounded missions and flashbacks effectively, with major turning points grounded in personal stakes. The emotional arch, from a broken child to a fierce avenger and reluctant rebel, resonates deeply, framing the film as more than spectacle. It's Eve's journey from victimhood to agency, albeit in a world stained by sorrow. Eve Macaro, from avenger to architect of her own path. Layered foundations. Eve begins as an emotionally scarred child, witnessing her father's murder and the death of her mother. Taken in by the Ruska Roma, she trains rigorously in ballet and combat for 12 years, yet remains haunted by her past. TheDrillaBeast.com. +15. EW.com. +15. en.wikipedia.org. +15. Internal conflict and drive. Although disciplined and skilled, she harbors a deep desire for vengeance, a motivation that sets her at odds with her mentors. Her decision to disobey both the director and John Wick highlights her evolving assertion of autonomy. Fangirlish.com. +2. tpointtech.com. +2. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +2. time.com. +5. en.wikipedia.org. +5. vocal.media. +5. Revelations and moral complexity. Encounters with the cult and her kidnapped sister Lena uncover devastating truths. Her father rescued her specifically, not her sister, and traumatize her worldview. These revelations humanize her struggle by layering grief, guilt, and survivor's burden, all of which shape her transformation. Vocal.media. +3. ew.com. +3. ew.com. +3. Agency and consequence. Choosing vengeance over compliance, Eve kills the Chancellor, her grandfather, and saves Ella. While it represents catharsis, it also earns her exile, ruptures the mafia truce, and places a massive bounty on her head, signaling a profound shift from avenger to fugitive. en.wikipedia.org. +3. ew.com. +3. time.com. +3. Dove John Wick, mentor, mirror, and moral compass. Shared trauma and understanding. Wick recognizes Eve's grief-stricken resolve, reflecting on his own history of loss and revenge. He becomes a mirror, understanding how vengeance can devour one's soul, while still empathizing with her mission. Catalyst for change. Assigned to eliminate Eve, he instead becomes her guardian, giving her a brief window to finish her mission. This morally charged choice underscores Wick's internal growth. He can still do violence, but he also defines his own ethics. Older Woman the director, Winston and Ruska Roma mentors. Conflict of loyalties. The director represents tradition, urging restraint to preserve the fragile truce. Winston echoes this caution. Their belief in collective order clashes with Eve's personal vendetta, highlighting generational differences in resolving injustice. Tech/.com. +10. EW.com. +10. tpointtech.com. +10. apnews.com. +10. en.wikipedia.org. +10. ew.com. +10. Emotional payoff. Eve's disobedience triggers exile, but also forces the organization to confront the moral and political fallout of her defiance. Man Daniel Pine and Ella, emotional anchors. Daniel, as the Chancellor's son and Ella's father, he shares Eve's desire to protect the innocent, albeit quietly. His paternal instincts mirror Eve's, reinforcing the film's theme of family versus duty. en.wikipedia.org. +1. jamarichi.com. +1. Ella, a symbol of lost innocence and hope. Ella becomes the tangible result of Eve's choice to merge vengeance with protection. Rescuing her allows Eve to claim a semblance of redemption. ew.com. Chains Lena, the tragic reflection. Personal stakes. Revealed as Eve's estranged sister, Lena complicates Eve's mission emotionally. Their brief reunion followed by Lena's abrupt death intensifies Eve's guilt. Remaining survivors can hurt too. Emotional catalyst. Lena's demise drives Eve's transformation from vengeance seeker to protector, focusing not solely on killing but on saving lives. Counterclockwise arrows evolution and relationships. Individual transformation. Eve evolves from a victim shaped by tragedy into a fully realized agent of her destiny, transcending her emotional scars to define her own moral code. Interpersonal influence. Wick's empathy, the director's caution, Lena's death, and Ella's rescue all serve as emotional catalysts, steering Eve toward a broader purpose beyond personal revenge. Values shift. Over the course of the film, Eve moves from singular revenge to a complex ethic, valuing protection, loyalty, and agency. Her decision to rescue Ella and break free from Ruska Roma signifies the thematic shift from vengeance to responsibility. Construction signs strengths and shortcomings. Strengths. Eve is one of the more emotionally nuanced protagonists in the franchise. Her internal conflict, layered motivations, and personal pain give her arcs weight. Fangirlish.com. +4. ew.com. +4. time.com. +4. Critiques. Some reviewers describe her characterization as thin and emotionally distant, especially when compared to Wick's well-established depth. Polygon.com. Glowing Star Final Assessment. In Ballerina, 2025, character development is front and center. Eve grows significantly, from a vengeful protege to a self-governing assassin artist shaped by loss, loyalty, and moral choice. Wick evolves into a moral anchor rather than merely a violent enforcer. Supporting figures like the director, Daniel, Ella, and Lena all contribute to Eve's arc, each adding texture, conflict, and emotional stakes. Though criticism exists around emotional depth, the film's emotional architecture largely works. Betrayal, grief, loyalty, and autonomy fuse to craft a journey of self-definition and raised stakes within the Wickverse. Ana de Armas as Eve Macaro. Charisma vs. emotional depth. De Armas delivers compelling physicality. Her assassin grace is frequently lauded, and she absolutely dazzles in action moments. TheDeRealBeast.com. +15. time.com. +15. artdeballet.com. +15. TheDeRealBeast.com. However, critics note her emotional range falls short. Reviews describe her as graceful, tenacious, but ultimately more decorative than interesting. Time.com. And flat, struggling to convey thematic resonance. Action-focused lead. The physical execution of her role shines. Complex fight scenes, including nightclub infiltration and brutal tavern brawl, highlight her athletic prowess. avforums.com. avforums.com. +15. thedarellabeast.com. +15. EW.com. +15. She brings fluid, dance-like motion to combat with powerful kicks and expressive movements centered around her assassin's training. Gabriel Byrne as the Chancellor. Byrne portrays the main antagonist with commanding menace. While villains aren't deeply laid here, his performance adds necessary weight to Eve's primary adversary. Critics point out his flair, noting he adds flair to his villain role. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +1. maxbealies.com. +1. de.wikipedia.org. +9. time.com. +9. thedarellabeast.com. +9. Handshake Ana de Armas and Keanu Reeves, Rap and Rivalry. Keanu Reeves makes a brief yet pivotal cameo as John Wick. Though some argue his presence overshadows de Armas, making her emotionally less engaging by comparison. artdeballet.com. +15. thedarellabeast.com. +15. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +15. Others appreciate the stabilizing effect of his grounded performance amid cinematic carnage. de.wikipedia.org. +6. time.com. +6. maxbealies.com. +6. Angelica Huston and supporting cast. Angelica Huston, the director, and Ian McShane, Winston, contribute elegance and gravitas, reinforcing world building. They provide the mentorship and emotional ties that give Eve context, anchoring her growth. Timeout.com. +8. time.com. +8. HoustonChronicle.com. +8. Lance Reddick, Norman Reedus, and the children Ella, Lena, fill narrative space effectively, though none significantly overshadow the leads. Timeout.com. +2. as.com. +2. nypost.com. +2. Performing Arts Ensemble highlights and tone. Many reviewers describe the cast's overall contributions as a fusion of style over substance. The collective effort shines through aesthetically rich fight scenes, yet few performances deeply explore character nuance beyond the operational level. A standout sequence, the chaotic tavern fight, injects levity and personality into the ensemble's interactions, emerging as a rare character-driven highlight. Whiteheaver checkmark performance strengths and limitations. Aspect strengths limitations. Leading presence de Armas's physicality, Reeves's gravitas, Byrne's menace, Huston and McShane's elegance de Armas's emotional flatness, supporting cast underused. Action execution choreography is top tier. Wartime fluid yet brutal can't fully mask thin character arcs. Emotional resonance personal stakes through the kidnapped child. Eve's quest dialogue and emotional beats often fail to land. Final verdict. Ballerina succeeds in its action performances, anchored by Ana de Armas's striking physical presence, bolstered by Keanu Reeves's moral steadiness, and enriched by a capable supporting cast. These performances elevate moments when combined with choreography and visual detail. Yet, the film remains stylistically driven more than emotionally compelling. Ana de Armas exhibits the physical skills of a lead but lacks the deeper emotional layers necessary for truly immersive character engagement, leaving the film's emotional core less potent than its thrills. Tonal and stylistic vision. Neo-noir ballet of violence. Wiseman crafts a sleek, visually striking world that bridges refined ballet with gritty assassin culture, echoing the neo-noir aesthetic of the John Wick universe. The film pulses with controlled brutality, produced with elegance and grace, while avoiding descent into camp. Realadvice.net. +15. TheVerge.com. +15. Reddit.com. +15. Time.com. +2. myzadezado.com. +2. techslash.com. +2. Dance of Death choreography. Wiseman frames brawls like choreographed dances, long, fluid takes emphasizing body motion and weight shifts. Fights rely on real stunt work rather than CGI, which, augmented by Chad Stahelski's reshoots, results in visceral yet artful violence. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +11. reddit.com. +11. en.wikipedia.org. +11. myzadezado.com. Camera with flash pacing and narrative flow. Linear with purposeful beats. The narrative is straightforward, inciting trauma, training, rebellion, and revenge unfold in sequence. Wiseman avoids jarring non-linear jumps, instead ratcheting tension via measured pacing that intensifies in the second half. butwhytho.net. +1. motionpicture-magazine.com. +1. Rhythmic momentum. Much like a dance performance, the film's rhythm oscillates, Moments of elegant stillness segue into rapid-fire combat. Critics observe some pacing dips early on, but the narrative gains momentum through escalating, stylistically bold action. Artdeballet.com. Movie camera shot composition and visual tone. Lighting and color as emotion. Visual tones shift to mirror mood. Soft pastels during reflective or emotional moments, vivid reds in violence, and cool blues with the antagonist, each carefully composed to enhance tone and thematic subtext. Motionpicture-magazine.com. +5. Filmzine.com. +5. myzazado.com. +5. Dynamic camera movement. Wiseman employs handheld shots to evoke intimacy and tension. Sweeping tracking shots preserve the choreography's fluidity. Dutch angles and strongly framed close-ups punctuate key emotional beats and heighten cinematic presence. en.wikipedia.org. +3. artdeballet.com. +3. techslash.com. +3. en.wikipedia.org. +1. reddit.com. +1. Wrench practical effects and world building. Choreographer-forward approach. The emphasis is on practical stunts, actors trained extensively, weapons are mundane or symbolic, like ice skates, giving fights tactile realism. The gymnastic grace meets deadly intent, showcasing a world where beauty and brutality coalesce. Reddit.com. +5. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +5. motionpicture-magazine.com. +5. theverge.com. +1. techslash.com. +1. Costume and set as character. Wiseman uses bold costume choices, bangles, sequins, kimonos, and richly designed sets, neon-lit nightclubs, austere training halls, as extensions of the characters, melding personality, status, and story into the mise-en scene. indianexpress.com. +3. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +3. kdrarmania.com. +3. time.com. +1. myzazado.com. +1. Reshoots and creative tension. Chad Stahelski's enhancements. After initial production, Stahelski reshot much of the action direction, refocusing on franchise-standard kinetic flair. Viewers noted the difference, and community sources confirm extensive reshoots to elevate energy levels. realadvice.net. +6. reddit.com. +6. myzazado.com. +6. Electric light bulb impact and interpretation. Stylish over soulful. Critics note that while Wiseman nails the visuals and fighting aesthetics, making it never boring, the emotionally serious tone sometimes undercuts its own strengths. TheVerge.com. The direction shines in style but occasionally lacks deeper emotional texture. Immersive physicality. The result is an immersive, ballet-like thrill ride, elegant, brutal, and meticulously crafted. Wiseman's visual decisions reinforce the film's identity as a high-end action piece within the John Wick universe. Whiteheaver checkmark final assessment. Atmosphere and tone. Wiseman shapes the film into a polished, choreographed world of sleek brutality, style-rich but restraint-bound. Stunt sophistication. His commitment to choreography and practical stunts, later enhanced by Stahelski, anchors every fight in believable danger. Visual storytelling, color palettes, costume, and framing align to convey emotional subtext and thematic contrasts. Pacing. The film builds deliberately, letting its action flourishes shine in the latter acts. Overall, Len Wiseman's direction delivers a visually arresting, stylistically coherent spin on the John Wick franchise. One where beauty and violence meet in choreographed elegance, even if emotional resonance occasionally lags behind the spectacle. Here's a detailed, third-person breakdown of the cinematography in Ballerina, 2025, exploring how angles, lighting, and framing shape its immersive aesthetic. Movie camera angles and movement. Dynamic, still contrast. The film balances tense stillness with fluid motion. Tight, claustrophobic close UPS amplify emotional stakes. But when action erupts, the camera seamlessly switches to long, sweeping takes that track Ana de Armas movements like dance, embracing the choreography and preserving spatial clarity. Reddit.com. +15. basilmarinachase.wordpress.com. +15. artdeballet.com. +15. Orbits and dolly work. In fight sequences, the cinematography orbits and glides around Eve, mirroring her pirouettes and spins. This tracking technique maintains immersion and amplifies the dance-like brutality of the combat. myzazado.com. Electric light bulb lighting and color palette. Neon neo-noir. Echoing John Wick's stylized aura, the film utilizes neon hues, hot pinks, purples, and cool blues, particularly in scenes set in nightclubs or continental hotel hallways. These lighting choices evoke a hypnotic, otherworldly mood and highlight the collision between elegance and violence. myzdezedo.com. Mood-driven shading. Quiet or emotional moments lean on soft pastel tones, evoking innocence or reflection, while violence-laden scenes use harsher red or shadow-heavy lighting to signal danger and moral tension. butwhythough.net. +1. reddit.com. +1. artdeballet.com. +1. letterboxd.com. +1. Framing and composition. Tense close UPS. Close framing on Eve's face or body parts, hands, feet, emphasizes her precision and disciplined training, turning small details into emotional motifs. This also evokes intimacy with her internal struggle. waymoviegeeks.com. +15. reddit.com. +15. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +15. Expansive action showcases. Fight scenes are often framed wide enough to reveal the full choreography, either inside a warehouse or ballroom, allowing viewers to appreciate every movement. These visually striking tableaus make each fight a mini dance performance. waymoviegeeks.com. Symmetry and spatial tension. Sets like the Hallstatt Tavern or Continental corridors are presented with symmetrical framing, punctuated by sudden asymmetries as Eve moves through the space. These deliberate compositions heighten tension and suspense. Glowing star visual set pieces. Ballroom ballet fight. A standout sequence occurs in a dimly lit ballroom. Tracking shots, fluid camera movement, and elegant framing combine to turn hand-to-hand combat into a stylized, choreographed performance. scottmendelsohn.substack.com. +5. basilmarinachase.wordpress.com. +5. reddit.com. +5. reddit.com. +9. waymoviegeeks.com. +9. en.wikipedia.org. +9. artdeballet.com. +5. themoviearcade.blogspot.com. +5. tribune.com.pk. +5. Meet Locker Melee. A later battle in a massive cold storage setting uses practical lighting, stark overhead fluorescence, bluish tones, to introduce clinical brutality, each freeze frame punctuated by the chill of the environment. artdeballet.com. +8. waymoviegeeks.com. +8. moviesar.net. +8. Wrench equipment and technique. High-end tools for precision. Behind the scenes, the production used Red V-Raptor 8K cameras, ideal for high-resolution, high-contrast visuals. This choice emphasizes the importance of both detail and clarity within fast-paced sequences. reddit.com. +2. elpais.com. +2. geeksulimited.com. +2. reddit.com. Bullseye atmosphere, tension and beauty. Atmospheric duality. The cinematography constantly threads elegance and menace. Soft ballet lighting shifts to harsh neon in violence, pushing the viewer from reflection to visceral shock. Tension through framing. The combination of tight angles and wide choreography shots is used as a narrative tool. Close-ups build suspense before reveal, while wide shots let the action breathe once released. Memorable visual hook. Critics highlight the visuals as key strengths. One called the cinematography exquisitely shot, snapshot-worthy, and among the best in action this year. letterboxd.com. +6. myzdezedo.com. +6. waymoviegeeks.com. +6. butwhythough.net. Whiteheaver checkmark final take. The cinematography of Ballerina masterfully intertwines beauty and brutality. Through deliberate lighting, precise framing, and fluid camera movement, it elevates action into visual artistry. Whether capturing the nuanced elegance of a ballet-inspired fight or the raw tension of a neon-noir setting, every shot intensifies mood and deepens engagement, making the film a standout in action cinematography. Let me know if you'd like a breakdown of specific sequences or more analysis of visual motifs. Here's an in-depth third-person look at the editing and pacing of Ballerina, 2025. How its rhythm shapes the narrative, sustains engagement, and ultimately affects tone and emotion. Stopwatch # overall flow and structural rhythm. 3-act cadence. The film follows a standard revenge thriller structure: trauma training, mission escalation, climatic vengeance. The editing supports this linear flow, largely avoiding jarring cuts or disruptive time jumps. kdramania.com. +13. Time. Come. +13. Reddit.com. +13. Reddit.com. Slow start, explosive build-up. As is typical for a character origin story, the opening acts, covering Eve's backstory and training, are deliberate, establishing emotional context. However, many critics and viewers observed that the first act drags, with pacing dips that blunt momentum before action ramp up. Explosion symbol action-driven midsection and climax. Seamless, fluid segues into action. Once mid-film conflicts begin, the editing tightens. Fight scenes roll one into another with confident pacing, allowing action to dominate, much like the later acts of a Wick film. Energetic yet uneven execution. While many action beats hit hard, there are scenes criticized for inconsistent tempo. Some fights feel rushed through quick cuts and uneven framing, diminishing their impact. myzadazado.com. +15. indianexpress.com. +15. nypost.com. +15. reddit.com. +2. cityonfire.com. +2. butwhythough.net. +2. Counterclockwise arrows, transitions, and scene interplay. Rhythmic interludes. The editing often juxtaposes violence with quieter shots, emotional close-ups of Eve, reflective pauses before or after fights, creating a pulsing rhythm that echoes her mental state. Abrupt shifts and tension breaks. A few scene transitions lack smooth build or release, sometimes leaving the viewer detached. This disconnect is most noticeable around the midpoint, where narrative tension dips before the House of Assassins sequence in Austria jolts the film back to life. Red-hot hash emotional and narrative resonance. Delayed emotional engagement. The restrained editing in the first half supports Eve's composed exterior, but it also keeps viewers at arm's length, making it harder to connect emotionally until the film's second half deepens the stakes. Crescendo and payoff. Editing tempo escalates powerfully in the final 30 minutes, culminating in the showdown with the Chancellor. Here, the scripting, pacing, and emotional closure coalesce, delivering a visceral and satisfying climax. Time.com. Bullseye overall impact. Strengths and weaknesses. Element strength-weakness. Momentum picks up considerably in Act 2 and 3, sustaining action-driven rhythm. Early pacing drags, lack of early narrative energy. Clarity clean build-ups and fight clarity in climactic sequences. Mid-film slowdown causes perceptible narrative lag. Emotional rhythm quiet beats allow for reflection before and after action. Emotional beats feel undercut by choppy mid-film editing. White heavy checkmark final take. The editing and pacing of Ballerina are a style over substance play, intelligent and immersive in its action-driven moments, yet uneven in its quieter narrative beats. While the deliberate build-up provides necessary context, it occasionally stalls the transformative momentum. Conversely, the crisp, escalating editing in the latter two-thirds brings energy, emotional payoff, and visual clarity when it matters most. Overall, the rhythm serves the fight choreography, and the final payoff, better than the introspective setup. But once the action kicks in, the film finds its groove and doesn't let go. Let me know if you'd like a breakdown of a specific sequence's editing or how it compares to other Wick titles. Composers and musical evolution. Creative shift. Initially assigned to Marco Beltrami and Anna Drubich, the score was ultimately composed by Tyler Bates and Joel J. Richard, the regular musical voices of the John Wick series. avforums.com. +2. traileryourlitty.com. +2. fr.wikipedia.org. +2. traileryourlitty.com. +6. en.wikipedia.org. +6. reddit.com. +6. This ensures musical continuity and thematic alignment with the franchise's vibrant yet tension-filled atmosphere. Speaker with 3 sound waves, tone and thematic motifs. Hybrid sound palette. Bates and Richard merge orchestral strings, synthetic textures, and rhythmic percussion to support Eve's dual nature as graceful yet deadly. Recurring string motifs underscore her disciplined ballet training, while heavy percussive beats intensify scenes of violence, blending refinement with brutality. Musical notes stand out. Musical highlights. Hand That Feeds, Halsey and Amy Lee. Released ahead of the film, this song underscores emotionally charged scenes. Its raw, edgy tone resonates with Eve's internal conflict and her arc of transformation. en.wikipedia.org. +1. fr.wikipedia.org. +1. Amy Lee and K. Flay's Fight Like a Girl. A powerful anthem released as part of the soundtrack. It mirrors Eve's growing defiance and physical prowess, amplifying action sequences with energetic empowerment. en.wikipedia.org. Level slider # the role of silence and sound design. Expressive silence. The film strategically reduces music in scenes of personal reflection, such as post-training recovery and flashbacks, allowing diegetic sounds, footsteps, breathing, to build intimacy and gravity around Eve's trauma and resolve. Explosion symbol emotional pacing and scene transitions. Action sequences. The score intensifies around choreographed fights, using rhythmic crescendos and abrupt sonic cuts to heighten suspense and dynamism. Music aligns tightly with visual cues. Periodic crescendos coincide with action peaks. Emotional beats. Moments of pathos, e.g., reunion with Ella, Lena's death, employ softer string arrangements that transition smoothly into elevated instrumentation as Eve's determination shifts into vengeance. White have a checkmark music vs visual storytelling. Strength example. Seamless integration score supports both ballet grace and fight brutality without overshadowing action. Motif recurrence themes tied to Eve's journey reinforce narrative continuity. Balanced songs like Hand That Feeds elevate emotional beats, while silence deepens intimacy. Potential overwhelm. Some viewers note that during intense action-heavy scenes, high-volume music occasionally competes with sound effects, though this overdrive is largely stylistic and intentional. Bullseye final assessment. The soundtrack and score in Ballerina deliver a compelling auditory experience that mirrors the film's emotional and kinetic shifts. Bates and Richard effectively blend orchestral motifs, synth-driven accents, and empowering vocal tracks to support Eve's journey from ballet prodigy to lethal force. While the powerful music occasionally risks overwhelming intense action with heavy instrumentation, the net effect is immersive. The score both elevates the spectacle and grounds the emotional core, making the film resonate on multiple levels, not just visually but sonically as well. Let me know if you'd like a breakdown of how themes from the score match specific scenes or how the soundtrack compares to other entries in the John Wick franchise. 1. Composer's signature style. Tyler Bates and Joel J. Richard, known for their signature work in the John Wick franchise, returned to sculpt the soundscape for Ballerina. Their collaboration continues to favor gritty, bass-heavy electronic pulses, orchestral swells that rise and fall with action, melancholic string motifs anchoring dramatic moments. This hybrid musical aesthetic aligns with the film's fusion of grace and violence, ballet and brutality. Multiple musical notes too. Thematic motifs and musical identity. Eve's theme. A recurring string motif, introduced early during ballet rehearsal scenes, returns in slower, minor key variations during moments of grief, such as flashbacks to her father's death, post-fight reflections, final confrontation scenes. This leitmotif builds a sense of character continuity, reflecting Eve's evolution from a dancer to a determined assassin. The assassin world motif. A darker, industrial tone underpins scenes set within the underworld, especially the Continental Hotel in Rome and the House of Assassins in Austria. Percussion loops and synth pads form a sonic backdrop for tension-building pre-fight moments. Political dialogue scenes with the high table. Thematic connections to John Wick's universe. Microphone 3. Songs that stand out. Headphone Hand That Feeds, Halsey and Amy Lee. This track plays during Eve's transformation training montage, blending vulnerability and rage. Its lyrics and vocal performance mirror Eve's internal conflict, strength drawn from trauma. Emotional layers are heightened by combining electronic beats with dramatic piano and soaring vocals. Headphone Fight Like a Girl, Amy Lee and K. Flay. Used during a pivotal action sequence, this anthem delivers adrenaline-fueled empowerment. The juxtaposition of feminist energy with lethal combat heightens the stakes and viewer immersion. Speaker 4. Role of silence, ambience, and sound design. Intentional silence. Several scenes drop the score completely, most notably a close-up before a final kill. The scene where Eve reflects on a photo of her father. This use of silence draws the viewer in emotionally, allowing ambient sound, e.g., floor creaks, wind, heartbeat, to take over, intensifying intimacy and dread. Ambient dissonance. Subtle ambient layers, like reverb-drenched piano notes or warped choral pads, are used under dialogue to unnerve the audience and deepen mood. Film projector #5. Music's relationship to action and editing. Fight synchronization. Much like John Wick, music and choreography are tightly intertwined. Edits and combat moves frequently land on beat drops or tempo shifts, amplifying impact. Example, during the snowy Austria battle, bass pulses mimic the rhythm of Eve's breath, tying the physical effort directly to sonic tension. Tempo and emotion. During emotional moments, especially around Lena's death, the music shifts to a slower, more legato orchestration. This allows scenes to breathe, making emotional beats more impactful between bursts of action. White heavy checkmark 6. Summary of musical impact. Element role in film effect. Original score provides emotional continuity via recurring motifs, deepens viewer attachment to Eve's journey. Songs used in montage and action sequences adds modern edge, emotional punch. Sound design silence plus ambient detail during tense moments builds atmosphere, realism. Sync with visuals matches choreography and editing enhances rhythm, flow, and immersion. Checkered flag final thoughts. The soundtrack and score of Ballerina do more than just accompany the film. They reflect the film's dual identity, elegant and ferocious, poetic and brutal. Tyler Bates and Joel J. Richard deliver a rich auditory landscape, using music to trace Eve's emotional state, heighten action, and immerse the audience in the Wick universe with a uniquely feminine voice. If you'd like, I can also list the full official soundtrack album with track names and timestamps from scenes. Ballerina, 2025, Themes and Messages, In-Depth Analysis. From a third-person perspective, Ballerina, 2025, is more than a stylized revenge thriller. It explores several layered and interconnected themes that elevate the emotional and philosophical weight of the narrative. These themes are communicated with varying degrees of subtlety and depth, with some resonating powerfully and others falling short of their potential. Here's a detailed thematic breakdown. 1. Grief and the quest for justice. At its core, the film revolves around Eve's grief over her family's murder and the slow-burning pain that drives her to seek vengeance. This isn't just about retribution, it's about reclaiming agency and dignity after deep personal violation. The movie frames revenge not as immediate rage, but as a methodical, almost ritualistic process of emotional recovery. Through Eve's cold and disciplined demeanor, the film explores how trauma reshapes identity and motivation. Effectiveness. This theme lands well, especially in moments where Eve struggles to balance emotional memory with ruthless action. 2. The cost of violence and cycles of vengeance. Echoing broader John Wick franchise motifs, Ballerina highlights how violence, once set in motion, rarely ends cleanly. Eve's journey is haunted by the realization that vengeance may never bring closure, only more blood. The film occasionally pauses to show the psychological toll of killing, with glimpses of remorse and doubt. Effectiveness. This theme is impactful, especially through reflective silences and moral hesitation. However, some critics argue that the action-heavy third act overshadows deeper moral reckoning. Woman with Bunnies #3. Femininity, power, and transformation. A standout thematic thread is the contrast between the grace of ballet and the brutality of assassination. Eve's physical training in dance is metaphorically, and literally, repurposed as a weapon. This duality challenges stereotypes of femininity, positioning beauty and violence not as opposites but as extensions of one another. The theme expands with other female characters, like the matron Lena and younger assassin Ella, framing power as something nurtured, earned, and internalized. Effectiveness. This is one of the film's most compelling ideas, underlined through choreography, costume, and dialogue. Performing arts. 4. Identity and reinvention. Eve's transformation from ballerina to assassin mirrors a deeper identity crisis. Who is she without her art? Without her family? The film subtly asks whether one can ever return to a normal self after becoming a weapon. Scenes of Eve observing her reflection or recalling childhood dance routines emphasize this loss and reconstruction of self. Effectiveness. Strong in concept, though occasionally underexplored in favor of plot advancement. Dove-5. Control versus freedom. The high table, the assassin hierarchy, and the ballet school all operate under rigid systems of discipline and control. Eve's mission becomes a metaphorical rejection of oppressive institutions, choosing her own path instead of one dictated by trauma, training, or hierarchy. Effectiveness. Quietly present throughout the film, especially in the climax where Eve rejects both revenge and allegiance to the system. Thought balloon final thoughts. Ballerina, 2025, effectively tackles a mix of personal, social, and philosophical themes, with grief, feminine agency, and identity standing out as the most emotionally resonant. While action occasionally overshadows reflection, the movie still delivers thought-provoking moments that challenge the viewer to consider the emotional consequences of violence and the complexity of transformation. For more insights, you can read Time Magazine's review here. Let me know if you want these themes broken down by specific scenes. Ballerina, 2025, Visual Effects and CGI Analysis. Third-person perspective, in-depth breakdown. In Ballerina, 2025, the visual effects, VFX, and CGI work play a crucial role in shaping the tone and style of the film. As a spin-off of the John Wick universe, Ballerina inherits a stylized world where grounded realism is often juxtaposed with hyperkinetic action and artistic expression. The film attempts to walk a fine line between gritty realism and theatrical presentation, and the VFX are central to achieving that balance. Visual effects integration, natural or distracting. From a third-person perspective, one can observe that the visual effects in Ballerina generally blend seamlessly into the film's overall aesthetic. The color grading, digital enhancements, and compositing work cohesively with the cinematography, allowing the viewer to stay immersed without being pulled out by artificial-looking sequences. The CG environments and set extensions are tastefully integrated, especially in wider establishing shots where the film needs to extend the gritty, noir-influenced urban landscapes. Unlike some modern action films where the CGI feels overly synthetic, Ballerina opts for a more subtle digital touch. Instead of overwhelming the audience with spectacle, the film uses VFX to enhance atmosphere, from moody lighting effects to digitally enhanced snowfall, fire, or debris during action set pieces. These additions feel organic to the film's world and tone, enhancing immersion or distracting. The VFX in Ballerina are mostly used to enhance immersion, particularly during high-tension combat scenes and stylized transitions. For instance, slow-motion sequences are sometimes augmented with digital blood or debris, but rather than feeling excessive, these effects highlight the graceful brutality of the protagonist's movements, tying in with the theme of a ballerina-turned assassin. These moments showcase a marriage between elegance and violence, and the VFX underline that duality. There are, however, a few moments, particularly in fast-paced chase scenes or large-scale explosions, where the CGI flirts with the boundary of believability. Some digital fire effects or vehicle crashes may come off as slightly overprocessed, reminding the viewer of the artificiality behind the action. Still, such instances are rare and do not dominate the film's visual language. Practical effects versus digital effects. One of the film's strengths lies in its balanced use of practical and digital effects. Director Len Wiseman, known for blending stylized visuals with grounded production design, seems to have favored practical stunt work wherever possible. The hand-to-hand combat, gunplay, and much of the physical destruction, like broken glass, crumbling walls, and set damage, are executed with practical methods, giving weight and tactile realism to the action. Where CGI comes into play, it often serves as an invisible enhancer. For instance, practical explosions are digitally supplemented with shockwaves or environmental damage. Wire work for stunts is often digitally erased and cleaned up in post, creating the illusion of superhuman agility while still feeling grounded in real physics. This smart interplay means that CGI rarely becomes a crutch. Instead, it elevates what's already on screen. A notable example is the ballet-inspired fight choreography, where practical lighting and set design are complemented by subtle digital flourishes, like particles suspended in the air or backdrops that extend the sense of spatial scale, making the action feel mythical yet tangible. Conclusion. In conclusion, the visual effects in Ballerina, 2025, are thoughtfully integrated and largely successful in supporting the film's vision. They enhance immersion rather than distract, and the balance between practical and digital execution is one of the film's technical highlights. While not entirely free from the occasional moment of artificiality, the VFX work maintains the dark elegance of the John Wick universe, contributing to a cinematic experience that is as stylish as it is visceral. The film stands as an example of modern action cinema where CGI is not used for spectacle alone, but to serve mood, tone, and character, especially in a world where ballet and bullets coexist in brutal harmony. Visual effects and CGI in Ballerina, 2025, an in-depth examination. Ballerina, 2025, directed by Len Wiseman and starring Ana de Armas, expands the stylized criminal underworld of the John Wick universe. From a technical filmmaking standpoint, its visual effects, VFX, and CGI play a critical, multifaceted role, not just in crafting action sequences but in shaping mood, theme, and visual identity. Left-pointing magnifying glass 1. Seamless world-building through visual effects. In Ballerina, VFX are not just ornamental, they are woven into the very fabric of the world. Set within a universe where elegance meets brutality, the film uses CGI to maintain that dual tone. Key methods include sparkles, set extensions, and digital environments. Many of the cityscapes, mansions, and underworld locations are digitally extended versions of real sets. CGI blends real urban textures, graffiti, neon lighting, decaying architecture, with augmented realities like vast rooftops or moody alleyways that would be impractical to build physically. Snowfall is digitally enhanced in several night sequences, not only to add aesthetic flair but to evoke isolation, danger, and poetic contrast to the protagonist's ballet grace. Framed picture stylized reality. Much like the parent John Wick films, Ballerina exists in a heightened reality. Visual effects support this by subtly manipulating reflections, lens flares, and ambient particles, dust, embers, smoke, that are often digitally composite to enhance texture and depth. Bullseye 2. Purposeful use of CGI in action sequences. Unlike blockbuster films that rely heavily on large-scale green screen or motion capture, Ballerina leans into grounded choreography, with CGI serving as a finishing tool, not the core medium. Explosion symbol digital enhancements in combat. Bullet impacts are often CGI enhanced, but what sets Ballerina apart is that these effects are small, quick, and reactive, syncing perfectly with practical blood squibs and real-time physical acting. Slow-motion moments, inspired by ballet, are digitally tailored to highlight grace and power. For example, a scene might feature the protagonist mid-spin with shattered glass suspended in the air, each shard digitally rendered to reflect surrounding neon hues. Fire, explosions, and destruction. Practical pyrotechnics are used where safe and feasible. However, digital fire and debris are layered in post-production for larger sequences. Wisely, the film avoids over-relying on CGI explosions, instead using them in quick bursts that feel dangerous and real. Structural destruction, walls collapsing, chandeliers crashing, is practically executed, with CGI only used to simulate secondary physics like dust or falling sparks, lending scenes authenticity and weight. 3. Practical effects versus digital effects, a balanced marriage. A major strength of Ballerina lies in how its practical and digital elements reinforce each other. Practical stunt work. Ana de Armas trained extensively, and most close-range fights are done with real choreography, stunt doubles, and wire work. CGI is used sparingly, mainly to erase wires, enhance blood splatter, or extend backgrounds. Car stunts, which are a staple of the Wick universe, are practically driven, with digital augmentation used to exaggerate motion blur or shatter effects during collisions. Emotion through effects. Visuals are used not just for spectacle, but emotional storytelling. For example, during flashback sequences, CGI introduces surreal dreamlike overlays, soft distortions, particle drift, or fading light that visualize trauma, memory, or obsession. These effects are not overused and contribute to character depth. Electric light bulb 4. Style versus substance. Do the effects distract or elevate? From a third-party observer's perspective, Ballerina walks a fine creative line. It is clear the filmmakers were aware of the risk of over-stylization, but instead of defaulting to modern CGI excess, they aimed for controlled stylization. Scales when it works. In scenes like the cathedral assassination, where falling ash mixes with candlelight and gunfire, the VFX create a balletic sense of chaos, reinforcing the protagonist's duality. She's both a killer and a dancer. Gunfights set in mirrored rooms or neon clubs use reflections, muzzle flashes, and smoke to create kaleidoscopic violence, echoing themes of shattered identity. Warning sign when it falters. A few sequences, particularly a late-act motorcycle chase, feature noticeably artificial backgrounds and physics-defying movements that might break immersion for keen-eyed viewers. Occasionally, digital blood spray comes off too video game-like, especially when compositing isn't perfectly matched with lighting conditions. These moments are minimal but show the limits of digital execution when compared to tangible, messy practical effects. Artist palette, artistic identity, and VFX. From an artistic standpoint, Ballerina is an audiovisual dance of violence and style. The VFX reinforce that thematic core, fluid motion, fleeting light, and dramatic composition. It borrows from ballet in both form and structure. Scenes are choreographed, lit, and digitally enhanced to mimic stagecraft, making the entire film feel like a violent performance. Conclusion: a refined technical achievement. In conclusion, Ballerina, 2025, succeeds in using visual effects and CGI not as spectacle, but as punctuation, emphasizing moments of beauty, danger, and emotion. The balance of practical effects with digital enhancements gives the film a grounded yet lyrical quality, consistent with its world and character arc. From a third-person critical lens, the film's VFX team demonstrates restraint, artistry, and technical precision. The result is a visually rich, emotionally resonant experience where effects serve story, not the other way around. Would you like a version of this tailored for your YouTube channel, Facts and Review, with voiceover suggestions or Urdu translation? Set design and locations in Ballerina, 2025, a detailed exploration. From a cinematic standpoint, Ballerina, 2025, is a masterclass in atmospheric world-building. Inheriting the visual DNA of the John Wick universe, the film crafts a world where elegance collides with violence, aesthetic choices that are deeply reflected in the film's meticulously constructed sets and evocative locations. The production design isn't just about creating pretty backdrops. It amplifies character psychology, narrative tension, and thematic contrast. Classical building #1. Immersive world-building through set design. From the moment the film begins, it becomes apparent that the production design team aimed to create a world that feels both stylized and grounded. The sets are rich in detail, texture, and layered symbolism. The Ballet Academy. The central location, a former Russian ballet school turned covert assassin training facility, is a masterstroke of design. Grand halls filled with aged mirrors, scuffed parquet floors, velvet curtains, and classical sculptures immediately transport viewers to a place where art and discipline have dark undercurrents. Props like antique gramophones, dusty point shoes, cracked portraits, and blood-stained training dummies blend the world of grace and violence, echoing the film's central metaphor, a ballerina who now dances through death. Candle lighting and texture. Each set is lit to enhance texture. Candlelit rooms flicker with gold warmth, underground corridors hum with cold fluorescent light, and night exteriors glow under soft snowfall or mist. These lighting choices work hand in hand with set design to highlight emotional tones, from mourning to vengeance to empowerment. Globe showing Europe Africa too. Locations that add story depth. The locations used in Ballerina aren't just scenery. They're extensions of the characters' emotional journeys and metaphoric expressions of the story's themes. Spiderweb underworld haunts and safe houses. From opulent criminal lounges with Art Deco interiors to crumbling post-Soviet hideouts in the forest, each setting offers a unique narrative flavor. For instance, a gilded lounge with live orchestras becomes a place of negotiation, power games, and betrayal. An abandoned opera house used for a covert weapons exchange not only provides cinematic grandeur, but mirrors the protagonist's haunted relationship with her past art form. Railway track urban alleyways and neon-soaked streets. The city locations, often shot in Prague and other Eastern European locales, are visually textured with grime, elegance, and timelessness. These streets are never modern enough to feel contemporary, nor old enough to be historical. They exist in a timeless, mythic assassin noir dimension. Alleyways are narrow and claustrophobic, reinforcing tension. Rooftops are expansive and lonely, capturing themes of isolation and danger. Briefcase character-driven spaces. Every major character is given a space that reflects their inner world. The antagonist's lair is clinical, brutalist, and stripped of emotion. Cold metal, sharp lines, and surveillance screens. The protagonist's temporary safe house is small, dimly lit, filled with relics of her past, music boxes, ballet posters, and training scars carved into the wall. Artist Palette 3. Aesthetics of contrast, beauty versus brutality. Production design in Ballerina thrives on visual contradiction. The most striking sets are those where beauty is corrupted by violence. A pristine ballroom turned into a kill zone. A rehearsal space echoing with music suddenly drenched in blood. A chandelier crashing into a fight, raining crystals and bullets in unison. These juxtapositions are not random. They are intentional visual storytelling tools, reinforcing the film's exploration of how art and violence mirror each other. 4. Props and symbolism. Props in Ballerina are carefully curated to be more than just decorative. Ballet shoes with hidden blades represent the blending of innocence and lethality. A music box that plays during an execution adds emotional horror, reminding viewers of the protagonist's lost childhood. Old Soviet ballet manuals used as combat strategy books are not only clever world-building, but also convey the institutionalized trauma passed down through generations. Every object on screen serves a purpose, either building mythology, enriching character, or foreshadowing narrative turns. 5. Authenticity and craftsmanship. From a third-party perspective, one cannot help but admire the physical craftsmanship behind the film's world. Much of the film relies on practical builds rather than digital backgrounds, which adds a sense of tangibility and realism. Details like cracked wallpaper, rusted weapons lockers, and smoke-stained ceilings speak to decay, time, and history, qualities that digital set design often fails to replicate convincingly. Period furniture, Soviet-era insignia, orthodox iconography, and retrofuturistic elements blend to form a unique temporal fusion. The world feels outside of time, like a violent fairy tale built on blood and legacy. Conclusion: visually compelling and narratively rich. In conclusion, Ballerina, 2025, demonstrates an exemplary use of set design and location choice to build a world that feels both operatic and intimate, mythical and real. From the elegance of crumbling theaters to the grit of neon-lit urban corridors, every environment contributes to the story's emotional and thematic resonance. The settings don't just contain the story, they amplify it. The production design transforms character psychology into physical space, allowing the viewer to not just witness the journey, but to feel it in the walls, the props, and the lighting of every scene. From a third-person analytical viewpoint, Ballerina's world is a visual ballet of beauty and brutality, and the set design deserves as much applause as the performances themselves. Would you like a version of this tailored for voiceover narration on your Facts and Review YouTube channel? I can also provide a translated Urdu version with voice acting cues if needed. Set design and locations in Ballerina, 2025, a comprehensive breakdown. The Ballet Academy, Beauty and Decay. Left-pointing magnifying glass narrative role. The abandoned Ballet Academy, introduced early in the film, is the symbolic and emotional core of the story. It is here that the protagonist was raised, trained, and transformed from dancer to killer. Framed picture design elements. Aged architecture, faded golden arches, worn wooden floors, cracked stained glass windows. The space is deliberately aged to evoke lost grandeur, mirroring the protagonist's stolen innocence. Props with memory, discarded toe shoes hanging like trophies, blood-stained ribbons, training mannequins. These elements reflect trauma woven into every object. Color palette, dominated by desaturated earth tones, brown, gray, burgundy. The Academy's palette contributes to the gothic, haunted feel of the space. Psychological impact. The space functions as a living memory box. Its creaks, echoes, and shadows all hold layers of emotional significance. It is not just a set but an extension of the main character's psyche. Cityscape #2. Urban underworld, Eastern European noir. Globe showing Europe-Africa filming locations. Shot across Prague, Budapest, and Vilnius, the urban backdrops have a timeless, decayed beauty, offering a blend of Soviet brutalism and postmodern dystopia. Key locations. The Continental Branch. This high-end assassin hotel is reimagined with Baroque interiors, velvet walls, and glowing chandeliers. It symbolizes hierarchical power within the underground world. Neon alleyways, rain-slick streets, neon signage in Cyrillic, empty tram lines. These environments set the tone for nighttime pursuits and covert kills, often without dialogue, letting the set tell the story. Hammer and wrench production design techniques. Use of practical lighting, neon, tungsten bulbs, instead of digital post-work enhances realism. Layered graffiti, old propaganda posters, and urban decay fill out the mise-en scene with silent world building. Film projector cinematic reference. These locations visually reference films like Atomic Blonde, Black Swan, and The Third Man, crafting an atmosphere of romantic nihilism and Cold War paranoia. Synagogue 3. Safe houses and personal spaces, inner worlds on display. Every major character has a private environment that reflects their emotional architecture. Woman #Ruth, Ana de Armas, has safe house. Decorated with minimal furniture, faded ballet posters, and a single oil lamp. Props, a locked wooden trunk filled with photos, a box of bullet casings next to point shoes. The set evokes a ghost of the past, frozen in time, as if Ruth herself never moved on from trauma. #the antagonist, industrial void. Lives in a brutalist complex, cold concrete, steel corridors, no natural light. Sound design complements set, the echo of boots, distant machinery, and humming servers. His environment is completely devoid of warmth or culture, signaling his ideological detachment from humanity. 4. Choreographed sets, movement built into design. Performing Arts Opera House Showdown. One of the film's most talked about sequences takes place inside a decaying opera house, a direct metaphor for Ruth's internal conflict. Set breakdown. Rows of red velvet seats torn and faded. A stage cluttered with broken set pieces, fallen chandeliers, and torn curtains. Blood stains mix with stage paint, and the orchestra pit is repurposed into a hiding spot for weapons. Dynamic use. The fight choreography moves with the environment. Ruth uses ballet ropes to swing, dives through trap doors, and finishes a kill framed perfectly in the stage spotlight. Symbolism. This set serves as a physical and narrative climax, where performance and violence finally merge into one. It's a visual ballet. The stage becomes a battleground. Map #V rural locations, silence and solitude. Evergreen the forest retreat. Used in flashbacks and later as a confrontation ground. Features include abandoned log cabins, hidden shrines, and icy rivers. Unlike the city's noise and neon, these settings are earthy, cold, and stripped of artifice, representing Ruth's raw, unrefined self, stripped of performance or disguise. Artist Palette 6. Color theory and lighting in set design. Set design in Ballerina is heavily enhanced by color and light direction. Artist palette color choices per location. Academy, sepia and muted crimson, faded glory. Urban environments, electric blues and neon pinks, modern chaos. Opera house, deep purples and rust tones, decay, violence. Forest, grayscale and icy whites, purity, death, clarity. Electric light bulb lighting as storytelling. Backlighting characters to show moral ambiguity. Sharp, single-source light in interrogation rooms emphasizes harsh truths. Candlelight scenes use natural flicker, lending emotional softness even during acts of brutality. Left-pointing magnifying glass 7. Microdetails, the art of props. No prop is placed randomly. Music boxes replay memories and function as emotional cues. Ballerina figurines are often cracked or bloodstained, symbolizing fragility. Pocket knives hidden in makeup kits show duality of identity. Tattered programs from old performances add emotional backstory without dialogue. Each object serves as a narrative layer, giving depth even in silence. White have a checkmark conclusion, world building through space and symbolism. From a third-person analytical perspective, Ballerina, 2025, set design and locations are more than backdrops. They are storytelling devices in their own right. They communicate. Character psychology, fear, elegance, trauma. Narrative progression, evolving from trap dancer to free killer. Emotional tone, isolation, vengeance, rebirth. Everything, from shattered mirrors to burning opera stages, is used to reinforce the film's central question. Can beauty and violence coexist? The answer is found not in the dialogue but in the spaces the characters inhabit, the objects they carry, and the floors they bleed upon. Absolutely. Let's dive deep into the dialogue and script of Ballerina, 2025, from a third-person analytical perspective, focusing on its structure, tone, emotional impact, and how it fits within the broader John Wick cinematic universe. This exploration aims to understand how the film's writing contributes to its mood, storytelling, and character development. Fountain Pen # Ballerina, 2025, Dialogue and Script, a deep dive analysis. Performing Arts I dialogue style, minimalist, stylized, purposeful. From the outset, Ballerina follows the linguistic DNA of the John Wick universe, which means dialogue is deliberately sparse, cryptic, and stylized. It leans on the rule of show, don't tell, using silences, body language, and cinematic mood to convey as much as words do. Writing hand # third-person observation. The writers, Shea and Shea Hatton, understand that in a film where mood, action, and symbolism dominate, the dialogue must be economical yet loaded with subtext. It's not just what is said, but what is left unsaid, that holds meaning. Bullseye 2. Tone and language, a fusion of elegance and violence. The film's dialogue mirrors the emotional state of its lead character, Ruth, played by Ana de Armas, restrained, haunted, but sharp. The lines alternate between poetic reflection, to emphasize Ruth's ballerina background and internal monologue. Cold efficiency, during assassin interactions. Emotionally fractured expression, in moments of trauma or vulnerability. 3. Script structure, clean, tense, and scene-driven. Scroll script flow. The script balance is short, sharp exchanges with lyrical introspection. Dialogue is frequently used to reveal emotional scars, e.g., flashbacks and mentor scenes. Build the assassin's world, rules, debts, allegiances. Elevate action sequences with memorable pre-fight taunts or post-fight musings. There is little exposition for exposition's sake. Instead, the script trusts the audience to infer world-building from tone, gesture, and sparse conversation, a trait inherited directly from the John Wick ethos. 4. Memorable lines, Dialogue that echoes. Several standout lines emerge not because they are flashy, but because they are weighted with symbolism or emotional truth. While the film avoids lengthy speeches, it excels in giving lines that stick with the viewer, such as fire standout lines, examples. Ruth, to her former instructor. You taught me to control my body. You never said what to do with the rage. A powerful encapsulation of her internal conflict, trained for grace, consumed by fury. Ruth, while sharpening a blade. A dancer learns to bleed silently. Symbolizes how pain is internalized, emotionally and physically. The continental handler, dryly. In our world, grief is a luxury. Revenge is the currency. Reflects the transactional, brutal nature of the assassin underworld. Villains taunt during final confrontation. You pirouette through corpses. Do you still think you're dancing? A direct attack on her fractured identity, art versus violence. Final whispered line by Ruth, ambiguous. It was never a performance, it was survival. Possibly the emotional thesis of the film. These lines don't just sound cool. They carry emotional and thematic weight, often linking back to ballet imagery and Ruth's transformation. Violin v. emotional weight, less talk, more resonance. While much of Ballerina leans on visual storytelling, the dialogue serves as emotional punctuation. Scenes involving loss, betrayal, or memory are often wrapped in quiet, powerful exchanges. Broken heart key examples. A wordless sequence ends with a single whispered "I remember" by Ruth at a grave, linking her past trauma to the revenge journey. In a tearful but restrained reunion with a childhood friend, the line "We were never girls. We were weapons with faces" becomes a devastating indictment of the system that raised them. The script allows emotional weight to accumulate silently, letting a handful of words carry the full brunt of an emotional arc. Dagger #6. Wit and subtle humor, cold, dry, and contextual. Unlike MCU-style quipping or Tarantino-esque banter, the wit in Ballerina is dry, situational, and rarely overt. It serves as a narrative tension valve, offering short relief before violence resumes. Crossed swords examples. During a negotiation with a black market arms dealer. Dealer, you don't look like you belong here. Ruth, coolly, you're right. I belong 6 feet above you. Continental clerk asking if she wants a room with a view. Ruth, does it come with regrets? These moments provide brief, sharp wit that stays in tone with the dark elegance of the film. Book 7. Thematic cohesion, words reflecting worlds. The most impressive quality of the script is how consistently it reinforces the central themes. Art versus violence. Identity and transformation. Revenge versus redemption. Silence as survival. The dialogue regularly mirrors these tensions. Phrases involving dance, control, rhythm, silence, and pain are used as metaphors for violence, trauma, and resistance. Open Book 8. Comparison to other John Wick films. While John Wick films are known for minimal dialogue and high-octane visuals, Ballerina attempts to weave more personal storytelling into the universe through scripted introspection. John Wick equals cold precision. Ballerina equals wounded poetics. The dialogue in Ballerina is more emotionally layered, though still minimalist. It tries to humanize the assassin's story without slowing the pacing, and mostly succeeds. White have a checkmark conclusion, a script of quiet power and poetic precision. From a third-person analytical perspective, Ballerina, 2025, delivers a well-calibrated script, one that blends stoic silence with bursts of emotional potency. The dialogue is never overwritten. It is refined, pointed, and thematically rich, with standout lines that linger long after the credits. Rather than relying on monologues or heavy exposition, the script uses carefully chosen words, delivered with intent, often underlined by haunting visuals or rhythmic violence, to create a cinematic tone poem of loss and revenge. It's not dialogue designed to impress. It's dialogue that feels lived in, scarred, and emotionally earned. Would you like this section formatted into a YouTube voiceover script, complete with timestamps and segment labels for narration? I can also translate it into Urdu if you're doing a bilingual presentation. Certainly. Here's a comprehensive and in-depth analysis of genre execution in Ballerina, 2025, written from a third-person critical perspective. This will not only help break down the film's alignment with the action thriller genre, but also offer insight into how it attempts to evolve within the John Wick universe and the broader cinematic landscape. Film genre execution in Ballerina, 2025, a deep third-person analysis. Left-pointing magnifying glass eye genre classification. What kind of film is this? Ballerina, 2025, is best described as a hybrid action thriller infused with neo-noir aesthetics, revenge drama, and subtle elements of psychological character study. Its DNA is firmly rooted in the John Wick universe, but it distinguishes itself through a female-led revenge narrative, thematic ties to art, femininity, and trauma, a more introspective and operatic tone. Thus, it is not a straightforward genre entry. It is a subversion of typical action formulas through character-driven storytelling. 2. Subversion versus convention, walking a razor's edge. White have a checkmark conventional elements, respected. Revenge premise, like many genre entries, Ballerina builds around a revenge arc. A woman hunts those responsible for her family's murder. Hyper-stylized violence. It continues the Wick tradition of highly choreographed, elegant violence with signature gun-fu combat and balletic movement. Assassin underworld lore, hidden rules, secret currencies, continental safe zones. All established John Wick conventions are retained. Counterclockwise arrows, subverted expanded elements. Protagonist archetype. Unlike typical stoic male antiheroes, Ruth, Ana de Armas, is emotionally raw, elegant, and haunted, blending feminine poise with lethal precision. Her identity as a ballerina-turned-assassin is unique within the genre. Emphasis on physical memory. Action scenes aren't just spectacle. They are physical expressions of grief, training, and transformation. The choreography blends trauma and technique in ways that elevate genre norms. Emotional tone. The film replaces genre-standard bravado with grief, silence, and reflection. Emotional restraint is not the product of stoicism, but of internal damage. Performing arts 3. Balancing genre elements, a tonal tightrope. Dagger action. Handled with technical mastery and thematic flair. The combat is rhythmic, visceral, and often has a dance-like structure. The choreography isn't just thrilling, it serves character development. Example, a fight in a decaying opera house plays out like a violent ballet performance, underscoring the character's dual life as a dancer and a killer. Roller coaster suspense. Built through quiet tension, betrayals, and slow reveals. The film avoids over-relying on jump scares or forced stakes, and instead creates dread through environmental storytelling and trust erosion. Performing arts drama. The film is emotionally weightier than its Wick predecessors. Themes of loss, betrayal, trauma, and identity are central. Flashbacks and symbolic visuals contribute more than spoken words, creating a visual drama often found in art house cinema. Face with tears of joy humor. Used sparingly. Delivered mostly via dry, deadpan lines or satirical jabs at the assassin world's absurd formalities. The humor serves to underline the surreal nature of the underground world rather than provide relief. Example, a continental front desk clerk deadpans. Would you like a room with a softer mattress or a sharper exit? The humor is tonal, not comedic, keeping the emotional consistency intact. Open Book 4. Fresh ideas versus cliches, innovation in familiar territory. Glowing star innovative aspects. Ballet as metaphor and movement. Using ballet as a central motif, both thematically and physically, is fresh. Ruth fights like a ballerina, making combat sequences uniquely stylized and emotionally resonant. Feminine rage as story driver. Instead of woman seeks revenge as a hollow trope, Ruth's motivations are built around emotional inheritance, systemic abuse, and the cost of performance, a more gender-specific exploration. Emotional quietude. The film often lingers in silence after violence, inviting reflection instead of applause. This makes it stand apart from typical bombastic thrillers. Warning sign areas where cliches remain. The Assassin's Code. The ancient assassin order trope remains unchanged. Though visually fresh, the concept of a shadowy organization with rules, tokens, and debts may feel familiar to longtime viewers. Revenge structure. The basic arc, lost training, revenge, confrontation, follows genre formula. It's the execution, not the structure, that feels original. Clapperboard v cinematic influences, genre ancestors. Ballerina draws influence from several genre-shaping works. Black Swan, psychological duality, ballet as identity. La Femme Nikita, female assassin subgenre. Kill Bill, vengeful heroine with stylized combat. Atomic Blonde, gritty Euro-noir aesthetic and bone-breaking action. John Wick, of course, its foundational mythos and combat style. What it does uniquely is blend art house elements with blockbuster action, creating something that straddles genres without losing its narrative or tonal cohesion. Book 6. World building within genre framework. Ballerina continues the John Wick universe tradition of hyperreal criminal society, classical elegance mixed with brutality, eccentric supporting characters, e.g., continental managers, code keepers, tailors for killers. But it layers in personal history and feminine mystique, bringing a mythic softness to a genre typically ruled by stoic masculinity. Whiteheaver checkmark conclusion, a stylized, subversive entry into the action thriller genre. From a third-person perspective, Ballerina, 2025, does more than just follow genre rules. It dances along their edges. It respects the core of action thriller storytelling, tension, momentum, violence, but infuses it with lyrical beauty, emotional introspection, and genre-bending symbolism. It's conventional in structure, yet fresh in execution. It's violent, yet hauntingly graceful. It's recognizably John Wick, yet intimately its own tale. In short, Ballerina doesn't just fire bullets. It writes poetry in blood. Would you like this transformed into a YouTube script with visual cues and chapter breakdowns? Or shall I prepare an Urdu voiceover script version for your channel facts and review? Ballerina, 2025, social and cultural commentary. Third-person deep dive analysis. Woven into the narrative, subtle, symbolic, and introspective. Unlike overtly political thrillers or agenda-driven cinema, Ballerina opts for a more subtle and metaphorical approach to social commentary. It doesn't present itself as a lecture on society, but through its characters, world, and aesthetics, it explores relevant themes such as gender roles and femininity in violence, institutional control over women's bodies and trauma, the commodification of talent, identity suppression and reclamation, the blurred line between discipline and abuse. These themes are woven naturally into the story, not through direct exposition or polemic dialogue, but via character arcs, set design, and symbolic choices. Performing arts too. Gender, power, and the female assassin archetype. At its heart, Ballerina is a story about a woman, Ruth, played by Ana de Armas, who has been trained from a young age to perform, both as a dancer and a killer. The film uses this dual identity to reflect on the cultural expectations placed on women, particularly regarding perfectionism, emotional suppression, objectification and control. Electric light bulb commentary observed. Femininity as a performance, Ruth's ballet training, rigid, graceful, hyper-controlled, mirrors how women are expected to perform in society, quiet, elegant, precise, and contained. Weaponization of womanhood. The same body trained to captivate is repurposed to kill. The film critiques how institutions, symbolized by the assassin syndicate, commodify female discipline and pain. Trauma in silence. Ruth, like many female action protagonists, is often silent. But here, the silence represents not stoicism, but suppressed emotional damage. The film treats this not as an empowering trope, but a tragedy born from institutionalized emotional erasure. Third-person insight. The film's subtext critiques how society trains women to package their suffering as strength, rewarding silence and obedience over healing. 3. Body control, discipline, and exploitation. The world of ballet, as metaphor and literal history, has long been associated with beauty, pain, and exploitation. Ballerina doesn't shy away from this. Key symbolism. The Ballerina School, an elegant facade for a brutal assassin training program. This duality critiques how art and beauty can be used as masks for systemic abuse. Physical perfection vs. human cost. The demand for control over Ruth's body is literal and metaphorical. In both the dance world and assassin underworld, the body is a commodity owned by others. Cultural echo. This draws parallels to real-world stories of dancers, gymnasts, and athletes whose bodies have been governed by powerful institutions, sacrificing their autonomy for performance. Scales #4. Revenge and justice, gendered morality. The revenge genre has long favored male protagonists. Ballerina flips this dynamic, but rather than simply replacing the gender, it re-examines the morality of revenge through a female lens. Ruth's revenge isn't framed as a noble crusade, but a desperate search for reclamation of agency. The film avoids glorifying her path. Instead, it shows how violence, while cathartic, cannot undo the emotional erosion of institutional betrayal. This speaks to broader cultural conversations about female rage, how it's often invalidated, then fetishized when it erupts. The film tries to reclaim rage as valid, not merely explosive. Left-pointing magnifying glass v. Social hierarchies, class and control in the assassin world. Like its John Wick predecessors, Ballerina presents a class-based assassin society governed by archaic rules, coded rituals, and economic debts. But here, it leans more into how these systems reflect broader societal inequities. Subtextual commentary. Exploitation of the lower tiers. Ruth and other trainees are essentially conscripted from childhood, a metaphor for how society extracts talent from the underprivileged, often stripping away their identity in return for opportunity. The Continental as bureaucracy. It operates like a shadow government, complete with a cold professionalism that dehumanizes its agents. This reflects how real-world institutions, legal, military, corporate, can appear polished while facilitating harm. Observation. The film subtly critiques how elitist systems commodify human beings under the guise of order and honor. 6. Trauma, memory, and repression. Cultural taboo of emotional healing. Ballerina is also a film about unhealed wounds and unspoken memories. Through flashbacks and symbolic visuals, it explores the psychological cost of survival in systems that reward killing and punish emotion. Ruth's trauma isn't simply a plot motivator. It is a recurring presence, haunting the rhythm of the film like a dissonant note in a symphony. The film critiques a culture, both fictional and real, that tells survivors to keep moving instead of making space for pain. In this way, Ballerina becomes a quiet condemnation of the societal silencing of emotional vulnerability, especially in women. Heavy exclamation mark symbol 7. Are the themes forced or organic? From a critical standpoint, the film successfully integrates its commentary into the narrative without becoming preachy or performative. It avoids didactic dialogue, instead using cinematography, symbolism, character behavior, and aesthetic choices to reinforce its messages. Nothing feels tacked on for wokeness or trend appeal. The commentary grows organically out of character arcs, especially Ruth's. Handshake 8. Handling sensitive topics, a mature approach. Ballerina touches on delicate themes such as childhood exploitation, trauma from forced performance, female empowerment born from pain, emotional silencing. The film handles these topics with a nuanced, unflinching tone. It doesn't try to resolve them neatly or deliver simplistic moral lessons. Instead, it offers a portrait of survival in a world that devalues humanity and invites reflection rather than easy resolution. White have a checkmark conclusion. Social commentary through elegance and violence. From a third-person analytical view, Ballerina, 2025, is not just an action film. It's a symbolic exploration of control, gender, trauma, and resistance. It reframes the revenge thriller as a cultural reflection, not just an entertainment spectacle. It respects genre traditions, yet elevates them with socio-political introspection. Its commentary is subtle yet powerful, layered into its visuals, character choices, and world building. It speaks to modern cultural conversations about identity, exploitation, and power, without disrupting the story's momentum. Ultimately, Ballerina is not just about a woman who kills, but about what the world tried to kill inside her, and how she reclaims it with grace, fury, and purpose. Would you like this expanded into a voiceover script for your YouTube channel Facts and Review? I can also translate or subtitle this content into Urdu for dual language narration. Ballerina, 2025, Audience Engagement. A comprehensive third-person perspective. Bullseye-eye emotional resonance. Does the film strike a chord? From the very first frames, Ballerina establishes a tone of melancholic beauty and emotional intensity. Unlike traditional action thrillers that rely solely on adrenaline, this film aims to connect with the audience on a deeper, more personal level. The central character, Ruth, Ana de Armas, is not merely an assassin on a mission. She's a wounded soul driven by grief, betrayal, and a hunger for truth. Her vulnerability, layered beneath her precision and lethality, elicits empathy from the audience. Third-person observation. Viewers are not just following Ruth's path, they are emotionally tethered to it. Her flashbacks, quiet moments, and haunted eyes all serve to invite emotional investment, not just admiration. Explosion symbol 2. Moments that trigger strong reactions. The film is filled with powerful, high-impact scenes designed to provoke visceral and emotional reactions across a range of audience experiences. Raygun excitement and adrenaline. The opera house fight scene. Stylized like a dance performance, this fight blends balletic movement with brutal action, leaving the audience enthralled and visually stunned. Close-quarters kitchen combat. Viewers feel every impact. The claustrophobic choreography and sharp audio design evoke physical intensity and breathless anticipation. Crying face tears and tragedy. Flashbacks of Ruth's past. Quiet scenes of childhood training, subtle abuse, and lost innocence create moments of sorrow and reflection. The graveyard scene. As Ruth stands alone, the camera lingers, inviting the audience to feel her silence, not just observe it. Astonished face shock and awe. Betrayal reveals. The film includes at least 2 major narrative turns that cause audible gasps in theaters. These betrayals carry emotional weight, not just plot impact. Moral ambiguity. At several points, the audience is forced to question Ruth's choices, leading to internal ethical tension, a rarity in genre films. Smiling face with open mouth and smiling eyes, moments of dry humor. Wry lines from side characters, especially the Continental staff, generate soft chuckles, offering tension release without breaking emotion. 3. Intellectual and emotional aftertaste, lingering effects. Ballerina is not a watch once, forget soon experience. It leaves viewers with unanswered questions. Who truly controls the ballet assassin institution? Was Ruth ever free, or was everything orchestrated? Can redemption exist in a world built on blood? This open-endedness invites deep reflection, theorizing, and post-viewing discussion. Emotional echoes. Themes of grief, bodily autonomy, and vengeance resonate especially with viewers who've experienced loss or suppression. Its depiction of trauma, without melodrama, leaves many reflecting on their own relationship with silence, rage, and healing. Repeat button 4. Rewatch value. Do viewers return? From a third-person critical standpoint, Ballerina is structured for repeat engagement, for several key reasons. Artist palette visual symbolism. The film is loaded with symbolic imagery, from the use of mirrors and body scars, to the color palette transitions, e.g., from icy blue to violent red, rewarding viewers who return to unpack meaning. Hourglass with flowing sand nonlinear storytelling. The use of fragmented flashbacks means viewers may understand the full emotional and narrative weight only on second or third viewings. Violin score and sound design. The haunting musical score enhances mood in subtle ways, something that grows more powerful with familiarity. Critical takeaway. It's a film that grows deeper, not stale, upon revisiting, a rare feat in modern action cinema. Speaking head in silhouette #V invitation to conversation, cultural impact and community discussion. On forums, in social media spaces, and post-screening conversations, Ballerina has already become a talking point. Key questions audiences debate include: is Ballerina a feminist revenge fantasy or a tragedy? How much of Ruth's life was truly her choice? What does the film say about the relationship between beauty and violence? This intellectual engagement, paired with emotional attachment, places Ballerina in the same category as films like Black Swan or Drive, cult-worthy, not just consumable. Speech balloon audience profiles. Who engages most? Woman #microphone female viewers. Deep connection to Ruth's struggle, particularly her silenced grief and emotional restraint. Appreciation for a story that presents feminine strength as layered, wounded, and complex, not just strong woman equals killer. Performing arts cinephiles and genre lovers. Love the arthouse action blend. Fascinated by the intertextual references, subtle callbacks to John Wick and neo-noir world building. Video game younger audiences. Drawn to the visual style, combat choreography, and tragic antihero vibe. Many express interest in cosplay, reinterpretations, and video breakdowns, expanding audience engagement beyond the theater. White have a checkmark conclusion. Ballerina, 2025, as an emotional and reflective experience. From a third-person critical perspective, Ballerina succeeds in doing what few action films dare. It evokes strong emotional responses without sacrificing visual spectacle. It invites conversation and interpretation, making it ideal for post-film reflection or digital discourse. It earns rewatchability, both for visual depth and narrative subtlety. More than just an extension of the John Wick universe, Ballerina is a mirror of pain, beauty, and internal war, and it demands, not just entertains, the audience's attention. Would you like this shaped into a YouTube review script for facts and review with structured timestamps and visual narration notes? I can also create an English to Urdu voiceover translation for dual language presentation. Certainly. Here's a thorough, third-person analysis comparing Ballerina, 2025, to other films within its genre, the larger John Wick franchise, and similar titles in cinematic style and theme. This breakdown explores where Ballerina stands out, where it aligns with tradition, and what it offers to audiences that is uniquely its own. Clapperboard Ballerina, 2025, comparisons to similar films. In-depth, third-person evaluation. Within the John Wick franchise, expansion or redundancy. Ballerina exists within the same universe as the John Wick films, sharing lore, settings, like the Continental, and rules. But rather than simply replicating Wick's formula, it attempts to reimagine the universe from a different perspective, both narratively and tonally. Counterclockwise arrows similarities. World-building continuity. The same stylized assassin underworld with strict codes of conduct, ornate rituals, and a blood economy. Gunfu action choreography. Brutal, elegant, close-quarters combat that's signature to the franchise. High aesthetic polish, neo-noir lighting, luxurious interiors, and a cold, metallic color palette. Differences. Emotional tone. While John Wick films are stoic and vengeance-driven, Ballerina is more melancholic and introspective, giving weight to grief, trauma, and loss. Perspective shift. John Wick is about a man dragged back into violence. Ruth, Ana de Armas, is someone born into it, shaped by it, and trying to reclaim herself from it. Gendered lens. Ballerina explores female pain, control, and suppression, using violence as metaphor, not just spectacle. Third-person summary. While Ballerina shares the John Wick DNA, it evolves the emotional vocabulary of the franchise, offering a more nuanced and character-centric narrative. 2. Within the action-revenge genre, a balletic outlier. In comparison to other female-led revenge thrillers like Atomic Blonde, 2017, Peppermint, 2018, or Lucy, 2014, Ballerina carves out a distinct identity. Bullseye what's familiar. A lone female assassin with a tragic past. A stylized aesthetic mixing brutality with beauty. A clear vengeance arc involving betrayal and personal loss. Squared knew what's new. Ballet as central metaphor. The fusion of dance and violence isn't just stylistic, it's thematic, illustrating the conditioning and control imposed on the protagonist. Emotional complexity. Where others lean into empowerment tropes or cold detachment, Ballerina embraces emotional fragility as part of the character's strength. Tone, less bombastic, more operatic. The film favors long silences, lingering gazes, and symbolic mise-en-scene over exposition-heavy plotting. Critical view. Unlike the hyper-stylized swagger of Atomic Blonde or the glossy, one-note vengeance of Peppermint, Ballerina is more lyrical and restrained, evoking emotional introspection over thrill-seeking catharsis. Performing Arts 3. Thematic and stylistic cousins, echoes of other influential films. 1. Black Swan, 2010. Both films use ballet as a metaphor for internal psychological warfare. But while Black Swan explores artistic obsession, Ballerina translates it into institutional violence and identity erasure. Third-person observation. Where Black Swan is surreal and psychological, Ballerina is grounded yet haunted by similar themes of duality, pressure, and self-destruction. Movie Camera 2. Nikita à la femme Nikita, 1990. Luc Besson's classic about a woman-turned-assassin resonates strongly. Yet Ballerina updates the trope, injecting more pathos and less voyeurism, focusing less on transformation and more on reclamation. Key difference: Ballerina explores what happens after the training, when the humanity begins to resurface, a phase Nikita touches on, but doesn't dwell in. 3. Kill Bill, 2003 to 2004. Tarantino's revenge saga is bombastic, colorful, and saturated with genre homages. Ballerina, by contrast, is colder, more cerebral, and emotionally restrained. Critical note: Ballerina lacks the ironic detachment of Kill Bill, offering instead a meditative journey through pain and identity. Film #4. Compared to the director's vision, Len Wiseman. Len Wiseman is best known for Underworld, 2003, and Live Free or Die Hard, 2007, films steeped in stylized action, dark palettes, and high-tech choreography. Chart with upward trend evolution observed. Earlier work, action-driven, reliant on genre cliches, visually stylish but emotionally thin. Ballerina. Wiseman elevates his storytelling, showing greater maturity in emotional depth, narrative pacing, and tone control. Third-person viewpoint. Ballerina may be Wiseman's most artistically refined film, demonstrating a more restrained, character-focused approach without losing his action director roots. Narrative innovation or formulaic. Ballerina walks a fine line between genre convention and artistic subversion. Clipboard familiar elements. Revenge plot structure. Assassin mythology and codes. Secret training school and betrayal by authority. Cyclone innovative twists. Psychological depth over spectacle. Feminine-centered narrative voice. Reframing violence as tragedy rather than triumph. Conclusion. The film doesn't reinvent the genre, but it deepens it, offering a mature, introspective twist on familiar beats. White have a checkmark final judgment, where Ballerina stands among its peers. From a third-person critic's perspective, Ballerina is not a radical reinvention, but it adds emotional, symbolic, and aesthetic layers to the assassin revenge blueprint. Compared to other franchise spin-offs, it is more artful and character-driven than expected. Within the genre, it stands out by refusing to glorify violence, choosing instead to examine the emotional ruins it leaves behind. It is a film that speaks softly but echoes loudly, a rare balance of brutal choreography and soulful storytelling. And for those familiar with its cinematic relatives, Ballerina offers a refined, elevated, and uniquely feminine perspective that distinguishes it in a saturated genre. Would you like this content turned into a YouTube segment for your facts and review channel, complete with a comparison chart or visual timeline? I can also translate it into Urdu-English hybrid narration for bilingual content. Absolutely. Here is a detailed, third-person analysis of the symbolism and metaphors in Ballerina, 2025, exploring how visual and thematic cues deepen the film's emotional and narrative layers. Performing Arts Ballerina, 2025, Symbolism and Metaphors. A third-person deep dive into the film's hidden layers. Ballet as central symbol, control, pain, and performance. The title Ballerina is not simply a reference to Ruth's past. It is the film's core metaphor, with ballet representing control, transformation, and trauma. Ballet in this context is both art and weapon, elegance and obedience. Link symbol discipline versus freedom. In the Ballet Academy, Ruth and others are trained to move with precision, not expression. This rigidity symbolizes how the women are molded into tools, not people. Ballet becomes a visual language of control, perfect posture, suppressed pain, hidden emotion. Candle hash metaphor of the stage. Every fight Ruth performs is framed like a stage performance, complete with lighting shifts, spotlights, and curtains. She is still performing, even when killing. This motif suggests Ruth is still trapped in choreography, even outside the studio, moving according to someone else's design. Third-person insight. Ballet, in Ballerina, is not about beauty. It is about suffering hidden beneath grace. The metaphor critiques systems that romanticize female discipline while exploiting their bodies and emotions. 2. Mirrors, duality, fragmentation, and self-perception. Mirrors appear repeatedly throughout the film, not just as props, but as psychological symbols. Left-pointing magnifying glass identity and reflection. Ruth often stares into mirrors before a fight or during quiet moments. These shots underscore her search for identity. Who is she when she is not being an assassin? Who is she when she is not a dancer? Mirrors are sometimes cracked or fogged, suggesting fragmented perception or distorted self-image caused by trauma. Repeat button repetition and ritual. The visual of Ruth mimicking her younger self's ballet routines in a mirror echoes the idea that she is stuck in a loop, unable to escape her past. Interpretation. The mirror represents both self-awareness and imprisonment, a reminder that the character's internal self is fractured by the roles she was forced to play. Large red circle 3. Blood and red fabrics, violence, femininity, and rebirth. The color red is used with surgical precision, most notably through flowing fabrics, lighting, and blood. Blood as a constant reminder. In many scenes, blood splatters on white surfaces, especially white ballet attire, turning purity into violence. This juxtaposition symbolizes lost innocence. Long dress red fabrics as transformation. In a key scene, Ruth wears a red ballet costume in combat. This moment is both jarring and poetic, turning a performance into a sacrificial dance. The red costume symbolizes empowerment through pain. She becomes both executioner and martyr. Fire lighting shifts to red. During emotional climaxes or moments of betrayal, lighting bathes scenes in red tones, evoking both rage and rebirth, as if Ruth is moving through a symbolic death. Third-person take. Red in Ballerina is not just about passion or danger. It is about the cost of becoming. Every drop of blood is a stroke in Ruth's redefinition of herself. Dove hash 4. Bird imagery, caged freedom and surveillance. Subtle references to birds, especially crows and swans, serve as recurring visual motifs throughout the film. Caged birds. Early scenes include shots of birds in cages within the academy, representing the young dancers, trapped by their training. A crow outside the window before a key death scene acts as an omen, possibly symbolizing fate or freedom watching from a distance. Swan imagery. A visual callback to Black Swan is present in the choreography Ruth performs, one that mimics the dying swan dance. Swans, traditionally symbols of grace, are turned on their head here, used to represent performance forced through pain. Observation. Birds in Ballerina are both symbols of potential freedom and systematic entrapment, mirroring Ruth's desire to escape and the forces still gripping her. Hourglass with flowing sand v. Clocks and time, trauma and repetition. Throughout the film, clocks tick in the background, and time loops back on itself narratively through flashbacks and repeated sequences. Clock motif. In training sequences, a metronome or ticking is heard, suggesting not only rhythm but also psychological pressure. Time becomes a weapon, a reminder that Ruth's past is never really in the past. Repeat button non-linear time structure. Ruth relives key moments: her training, her friend's death, her first kill. These are not presented chronologically but like memories triggered by emotion, reinforcing the psychological toll of trauma. Third-person summary. The metaphor of time speaks to how trauma isn't linear. It loops, distorts, and repeats, especially for survivors of psychological and physical conditioning. 6. Cold environments, emotional numbness. The film's overall color palette leans into icy blues, grays, and silvers, evoking a sense of emotional detachment and numbness. Sterile set design. The academy, continental halls, and even many of the fight locations feel cold, impersonal, and institutional, visually representing how emotion has been systemically stripped from the characters' lives. Snowflake contrasted with warmth. Brief glimpses of warmth, candles, firelight, sunset, occur only in memories or moments of vulnerability, hinting at the life Ruth could have lived outside this machine. Critical lens. The temperature of the world reflects the emotional frostbite of a life spent suppressing feelings in favor of survival. White-heavy checkmark conclusion. Symbolism in Ballerina, 2025, enhances depth and meaning. From a third-person analytical lens, Ballerina is more than a stylized assassin thriller. It is a rich tapestry of visual metaphors and recurring motifs that reinforce core themes of identity, autonomy, and repression. Deepen the emotional storytelling through symbolic visuals, mirrors, blood, birds, coldness. Transform violence into poetic commentary, revealing that the real battle is internal, between who Ruth was, is, and might become. While the surface may seem familiar to action audiences, those attuned to symbolism will find Ballerina a haunting, layered experience, a dance of metaphor that lingers long after the final act. Would you like this transformed into a narrated video essay script for your Facts and Review YouTube channel, complete with suggested clips, timestamped shots, or a side-by-side symbolism breakdown in English and Urdu? Ballerina, 2025, Symbolism and Metaphors. In-depth third-person analysis. Ballet as a metaphor for institutional violence and identity loss. Ballet is not just Ruth's background, it's the core metaphorical structure of the film. Lock grace as a cage. Ballet, an art form celebrated for grace and discipline, is subverted here to represent submission, pain, and emotional erasure. The same moves Ruth once used to express herself are now used to kill, suggesting she has become a mechanism of beauty weaponized by brutality. Musical score choreography as indoctrination. The training sequences are shot with metronomic pacing, rhythmically repetitive, making the ballet studio feel more like a military boot camp than an artistic sanctuary. Ruth's movements are no longer her own. They are engineered perfection, a metaphor for how she has been programmed to move, react, and even feel according to someone else's expectations. Counterclockwise arrows repetition equals entrapment. Ruth is shown practicing the same routines repeatedly, often alone, sometimes with echoes of her younger self in flashbacks. The implication: she is still performing, still stuck in the same role, despite the violence and time that have passed. Third-person reflection. Ballet, traditionally associated with grace, becomes in Ballerina a lens to examine coerced femininity, control of the female body, and the way institutions disguise trauma under the guise of discipline. 2. Mirrors and reflections, duality, dissociation, and memory. Mirrors are one of the film's most frequent and subtle symbols, appearing in everything from dance studios to dressing rooms to fight scene compositions. Dual identity. Ruth is constantly placed in front of mirrors, especially during emotionally volatile moments. This suggests her struggle to reconcile her past self as a dancer with her present as a killer. The mirror becomes a battleground between her internal truth and her external performance. Broken heart fragmentation and trauma. One symbolic moment features Ruth smashing a mirror with her bare hands. The shards reflect multiple fractured versions of her face, a metaphor for psychological fragmentation due to trauma. In another, her reflection doesn't move in sync with her, subtly implying dissociation, her mind separating from the body to survive. Critical reading. The mirror motif explores how survivors of trauma often feel like strangers to themselves, and how identity, once cracked, is difficult to realign. Large red circle 3. Red and white, innocence stained by violence. Color symbolism is used throughout the film to enhance emotional context and thematic resonance, with red and white as the most dominant. Medium white circle white as purity and vulnerability. Young ballerinas wear white during training, representing innocence, youth, and potential. These same outfits become stained with blood, particularly during flashbacks to betrayals or executions. White rooms, white corridors, white shoes, all symbols of blank slates, are slowly invaded by violence, representing the corruption of the innocent. Large red circle red as rebirth and rage. Ruth's red costume is introduced at a narrative turning point. She dons it not to perform ballet but to carry out her most personal and symbolic kill. It's not just a costume, it's armor and declaration. Blood isn't just gore, it's almost painterly, slow motion in moments of impact, artistic and tragic, blending performance with death. Third-person take. The contrast between white and red serves as a visual metaphor for Ruth's evolution, from passive victim to an active agent of reclamation. Red becomes the color of agency, not just violence. Dove #4. Bird imagery, freedom, surveillance, and death. Birds, especially crows and swans, appear subtly yet repeatedly, providing metaphoric structure to Ruth's arc. Flying bird, caged bird equals Ruth. Early in the film, a bird cage sits on a windowsill in the ballerina dormitory. It's delicate, gold, with a silent bird inside. It becomes a recurring image, used to symbolize Ruth's entrapment within the system. As the film progresses, the bird escapes, but is later seen dead in the snow, representing freedom that comes too late, or the price of escape. Swan imagery. Echoes of the Dying Swan ballet are reflected in Ruth's solo performances. In one scene, she dances the iconic solo while bleeding, a metaphor for dying beautifully under pressure, embodying both fragility and resilience. Swans, elegant on the surface, are powerful paddlers beneath water, paralleling Ruth's dual nature, composed in public, battling internally. Third-person analysis. Bird imagery explores the dichotomy between freedom and surveillance, beauty and danger, positioning Ruth as someone who has learned to fly, but only after breaking her own wings. Stopwatch #V clocks, time loops, and trauma repetition. The motif of time, clocks, ticking sounds, and nonlinear memory represents the inability to move on from traumatic events. Alarm clock tension-building devices. Clock-ticking sounds are overlaid in scenes with no visible clocks, creating a sense of internal countdown, as if Ruth's psyche is always seconds from collapse. The metronome used during dance training is echoed during fights, blending training and killing into the same timeline. Repeat button flashbacks as loops. Flashbacks aren't marked by filters. They invade present moments, often triggered by smells, sounds, or silence. This reflects how trauma interrupts linear time, dragging Ruth into emotional loops she cannot escape. Interpretation. The motif of time reveals that healing isn't a straight line. Ruth's past is not over. It's embedded in her very reactions, movements, and silence. 6. Cold imagery, detachment, numbness, and emotional frost. From snowy landscapes to blue-lit corridors, Ballerina leans into coldness as a symbol of emotional suppression and institutional cruelty. From the world of John Wick, Ballerina was produced on a mid to high six-figure budget, estimated between $50 million to $90 million. en.wikipedia.org. +15. Screenrant.com. +15. Factsmostly.com. +15. With this kind of investment, audiences expected a polished, high-octane action thriller with lean storytelling, elite choreography, and top-tier production values. Clapperboard production and on-screen quality. Action craftsmanship. Despite initial concerns, test screenings reportedly prompted extensive reshoots directed by Chad Stahelski. Critics and fans praised the sequence quality. Reviews from outlets like Vulture and IGN highlighted the gorgeous and creative fight scenes, especially in the second half. Aesthetic polish. Production invested heavily in cinematography, set pieces, and choreography. The reshoots, though costly and time-consuming, notably elevated the action caliber, aligning it with the visual and kinetic standards audiences expect from the John Wick franchise. Narrative cohesion. While technical execution received acclaim, some critics mentioned that the story felt messier and tonally inconsistent, a possible byproduct of extensive post-production fixes. Vulture.com. +11. Reddit.com. +11. Reddit.com. +11. White pointing backhand index conclusion. The production budget was put to strong use. The final film delivered handsome visuals and thrilling action sequences fitting for the franchise, though narrative unevenness suggested some corners were trimmed despite high production investment. Banknote with $ financial performance. Opening weekend. The film grossed approximately $24.5 to $25 million domestically, aligning with initial expectations yet falling short of sharper forecasts. Some anticipated $28.35 million. Global tally, early run as of June 11th, it had earned roughly $29.6 million in North America and $26 million internationally, for a total just over $55 million. en.wikipedia.org. Contextual standing. Compared to franchise benchmarks, it debuted below major John Wick films. Chapter 4 opened with $73 million, Chapter 3 with $56 million, though still ahead of the original Wick film in 2014, $14 million. Vulture.com. Against comparable spin-offs like Red Sparrow, budget $69 million, global gross $151 million. It's pacing slower and needs sustained legs to break even. ScreenRant.com. Profit outlook. With a production budget up to $90 million, excluding marketing, and relatively modest box office to date, it's currently in a precarious financial position, unlikely to be classified as a major success unless it sees significant growth in coming weeks or recoups via streaming and ancillary markets. Megaphone impact of marketing and reception. Buzz and marketing. MCU-style teasers leveraged Ana de Armas' star power and John Wick universe connections. Keanu Reeves' cameo, though brief, was used strategically in promotional materials. However, marketing pressure to promise a girl-powered Wick may have lowered audience expectations. Critical and audience feedback. With a cinema score of an hour and 87% positive post-track ratings, the film earned favorable word of mouth. en.wikipedia.org. +1. apnews.com. +1. Many critics praised the action and heroine's performance.